Welcome to the AI Security Update, hosted by Dr. Anmol Agarwal, where we break down the latest in AI and security with experts on the front lines, focused on what you need to know without the hype. Welcome to the AI Security Update, where we discuss the latest in AI and security. Today, I'm excited to introduce our guest for this episode, Aby Rao. Aby, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you, Anmol. Thanks for having me here.
Would you like to introduce yourself and your background for our audience?
Yeah, I would be happy to. Aby Rao, based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a cybersecurity professional for the past 20 plus years. I've spent 16 years managing teams and directing information security programs in the industry as well as in the professional services side of things. The way I like to explain my career is that I'm a bilingual. So I have the cybersecurity and the technology aspect of my work, which is very analytical in nature. But I'm also very passionate about storytelling and filmmaking. So I feel like I speak two different languages of analytics and creativity. And I sit at this intersection of two different languages and I try to communicate using aspects of both of those.
That's so interesting, story making and filmmaking. So do you want to talk a little bit more about the filmmaking and storytelling aspect?
Yeah, I would love to. A lot of my interest and passion in the storytelling sphere of work has been in the immigrant community. Being an immigrant myself who's lived in this country for about 24 years now, I feel like the many stories out there that would enrich our lives from all over the world. That's a topic I've dedicated myself to over the past 15 years or so. And this is something that I do on the side, weekends and weekday after work. But there are so many different aspects of filmmaking that is so refreshing. So there is the pre-production part where you conceive an idea and write a story, but then you also find location and actors to kind of bring them together to make your dream come true in a way. And that's when you go into the production side of things where you know work with cameras, work with lights, sound, and you build a team around you to realize that aspect of storytelling. And then the last piece where the story really comes together is the editing piece. In the editing studio, you layer your footage with music, with sound, with the feel aspect of storytelling, right? Because you want your audience to feel your story and not think as much, because that's one area of storytelling which I believe it's felt from the heart, and that's something that I really focus on. So it's I think of it as a long-term project that you sign up for, like you would in a company or an enterprise, and you're building something from scratch, which is what is very exciting.
That's just so interesting because I think a lot of us in cybersecurity, we focus on our day jobs, but not really what we do outside of work. And really, that reminds me of how AI and AI security, it's even transforming filmmaking and storytelling. We see AI generated music, AI generated scripts. Any thoughts on that, on the rise of AI generated content?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that. As a creative person, I feel like some of those technologies can undermine your creativity and what you bring to the table as a human being. But at the same time, I can see how that can enhance and enrich storytelling as well. So it depends the context that we are talking about. If we are telling an entire story which could be told by a human, then I would question that approach. But if you're trying to enhance a human based storytelling with some aspects of AI, I completely get it. I'll give you one example where I feel like AI really enriches the story is recreation or reenactment of parts of your story. So, for example, if you want to tell a story about Renaissance Italy, obviously, for you to put together that kind of production, it's going to take millions of dollars, right? But with the help of generative AI, you can create that content and ensure that it fits well with your overall story rather than that being a story itself. So it really varies on what you're trying to achieve. I think the AI assistance aspect is really important, creative world as well, where you had assistance from different tools and technologies for decades now, right? Back in the day, people would sketch and then they would create animations. So they would create thousands of artwork and then put it together to create the animative sequence. But when computers came around, that changed. So I feel like this is the next phase of evolution when it comes to creativity. And that's how I look at it.
And I know that there was a movie recently, I forget the name, maybe you remember, where they used AI to enhance the dialogue of the actors. So, for example, there were certain accents that they wanted to emulate, and so they replaced some of the actors' voices with AI, almost like dubbing the voice with AI when they couldn't get the accent quite right, just to enhance the authenticity of the actor's voice. Now I don't remember the name of that movie, but I remember it was a big thing in Hollywood and in the Oscars. They were mixed feelings about it, right? Obviously, some people are scared of this AI, the rise of AI, because we still want the creativity that comes from people and from human stories. Because I agree with you, AI can learn from all of this data. It can mimic things, right? But the creativity and the human voices, I think, are something that we need to continue. So that's just, that's really interesting. Obviously, very outside of cybersecurity, but I think that's also very important for people to understand is that AI is transforming all of these different industries.
If you spend time in this industry, people are obviously very intrigued by the output, right? What does the
Mhm.
final product look like, whether it's a film, music video, you name it, or an animation film. But people are equally important in the behind the scene part of it. So they're really keen to learn how this story came together. What was the origin of this story? How did the actors go through the process of execution? How did the director move the set pieces? I think it's equally important for audience to understand behind the scene, and I feel like that human element is extremely important, and the adversity that humans go through to tell stories is equally important to our audience. So as much as I would think that the end product has to be good. People are also very keen to learn behind the scene. And that collective thought process leads to people, realizing that this is a good product or this is a good story. So it's an amalgamation of behind the scene and the final product that helps people frame their mind around what a good story is.
You have over 20 years of experience in cybersecurity. Based on your cybersecurity industry experience, what are some challenges you see with the AI security field in general?
Before I dive into AI security, cybersecurity has gone through its own evolution and maturity over the past 20 years or so. And fortunately, we've had very strong people who have bolstered the industry. So the community has been very strong and very people oriented, right? We do use technologies, we use automation, but the foundation of a strong cybersecurity program are the people that are, holding it together. Now, with AI, what has happened is it has taken the evolution to the next level very quickly. One of the precursors of AI was cloud and crypto. And, people did move fast, but if you were to compare how quickly cloud technology evolved as opposed to AI is probably 4x of where cloud technology was when it started to grow. So there is that pace that you have to keep up with, the velocity at which humans that I spoke about have to keep up with. So there is that knowledge parity you have to ensure that you meet. And secondly, you have to ensure that you're supporting business. So that tends to be a big concern with a lot of companies is the business tends to move at a very high velocity in order to gain traction and act as a differentiator in the market. Can security keep up? Can risk keep up? Can privacy and compliance keep up? I think those are some of the valid questions that I've heard from business leaders is we want to release this out in the next week. And as security professionals, you're dealing with a lot of legacy and technical debt that you have to protect. And now, on top of that, you're layering some very fast moving emerging technology. So that's a quest that we have to deal with in the industry, and something that is there is no easy answer. There's no silver bullet to that. But the best thing you could do is utilize AI to protect yourself from AI. So, in order to keep up with the scale and velocity of I strongly feel that you have to use AI and ML technologies to strengthen your controls and safeguards.
Yeah, I think we see this a lot, AI versus AI. The challenge we see is that no algorithm can 100% be perfect. So that brings me to another concept is at what level do you think we need to have completely autonomous operations versus having a human in the loop?
We have to go back and measure these technologies within the AI ecosystem. So if you go back a couple of years, 2023, ChatGPT was released a few months ago in November 22, and people were experimenting. There's a lot of skepticism around the technology and the competitor landscape. But very quickly in 23 and then in 24, there was resounding success when it came to usage of AI by businesses. But throughout these 3 years, you might have noticed that humans have always been in the loop. The engagement might have reduced over time, but that has not taken humans away from the technology. So we are moving towards an autonomous or human free AI technology. But if you look at the trend so far, it's been progress, but not such a drastic progress that human can be eliminated from the process, right? So I would think that we have to really look through the lens of where the technology stands today. Our AI products and services involve complete autonomy? Some cases they do. For example, driverless. Yeah, but if you look at the industry at large, humans have continued to stay in the loop, and even with driverless technology, there's continuous audit and accountability that gets mapped back from the technology to humans and people. So, as far as the way I look at humans in the loop, it will continue to be a major element of the growth of this industry. And we can argue about to what percent, to what extent, but I don't see in the very future that humans can be eliminated. That's at least how I look at it, and that's a role we play as risk professionals. I don't see myself as a security professional purely. I look myself as someone who's there to reduce risk for the organization. Yes, security is my primary focus, but if I see a risk from the privacy angle or a compliance angle, I'm not throwing my hands in the air. I'm jumping in there and helping out as much as I can. So there is a strong need for humans to be involved. There is a strong need for accountability, which purely falls on humans and not autonomous agents.
Audit and accountability, I think that's something we have a debate in the AI governance space, right? Is with accountability is who is in charge when something goes wrong. Could you just give the audience an example of accountability cases that, in the public news that you have seen, just for our audience that might not be involved in the governance space?
Yeah, whenever there is, and I'm playing out how things work out in enterprises. Whenever there is a breach, let's say there's been a data breach, you have to map back to the root cause of why it happened, how it happened, what were some of the missing controls, what were some of the processes that could have prevented this breach or leakage. And processes, controls are put in place by humans, and humans have leaders. So when it comes to accountability, leaders are held accountable and responsible for breaches, for leakages, for lack of controls. And that's the mapping that happens in the postmortem of that incident or that breach. So you look at the outcome, which is data breach in this case that we're talking about. And then when you do the mapping, when you do the investigation, it maps back to either a technology or people who are supporting that technology and growing the technology and processes that bolster people and technology together. So there is a human element and there is an accountable element or individual or group of individuals that are always held responsible. And that is really important to prevent future breaches. If you don't hold people accountable, if you don't correct some of the gaps, then you are opening yourself up to more breaches. So that's why whether it's chief information security officer or chief risk officer or chief privacy officers form that second line of defense to govern and monitor these kinds of situations from occurring. And then you have a chief technology officer, chief information officers, chief data officers who are the front line, who are the ones who are building these technologies and working with the second line to make sure that they are safeguarding the organization. So, leaders are very aware of the risk that they're signing up for, and they have to take accountability for what has happened, eventually rising up to the CEO who's accountable for the entire organization. So it always maps back to a person or a group of people who have to act upon to prevent such events in future.
What are some of the top things that you think people need to know about AI security, given what's been trending on the news or what you've seen?
When it comes to AI technology and tools that are out there, just like any other technology, it has the positive outcomes and the negative outcomes. So the way I think about it is fire. Fire can be used to cook your food, to protect your home, but it can also, if not handled well, can burn down your house. So it has the positive outcomes and negative outcomes that you can use it for. The you can utilize fire for. So I look at it that way for AI as well. So I'm talking about risk, but not in a direct way. I'm just providing an analogy that would help you understand the potential outcomes. So when it comes to let's go back to the analogy of fire, and when you're cooking your food, think of it as product development. It's really helping you build a product to grow your business, to grow your coverage in the market. So that's you can really cook a really good product by using fire, by using AI and machine learning. Now, when it comes to keeping your house warm, which is what fire can be used for as well, is using AI for security technologies. How can you use AI to fuel your governing capabilities, monitoring capabilities, reporting capabilities, discovering capabilities, and most importantly, and which is what AI is really good for, is prediction. How could you predict potential future threats that can impact your organization? But at the same time, fire can burn down your house. So I think of it as weaponization of AI by external forces, where you have very sophisticated phishing attacks or fake information and misinformation acting upon your organization to really threaten the risk posture. Or it could be internal users as insider threats who could misuse AI and impact your org. So that's how I look at AI risk. It has positive and negative aspects to it, but it's how you shape it up and how you put it to the best use that would determine where the risk is trending.
So, one concept that you talked about that I don't think we've covered in any episode yet is this idea of insider threat or insider risk. So, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, if you look at the industry trend, insider threat is the top three risks to any organization. And just to unpack what insider threat means, Insider threat means any risk posed by people who are implicit to an organization, whether they're full time employees, contractors, third party, fourth party, fifth party individuals working for your organization, and who have privileged access to your organization or more access to your organization than someone just off the street. So that's what insider threat is. And another clarity I want to offer in this space is insider threat comes in two basic forms. One is human error, where individuals within the organization always make changes, right? We release code, we build software, we protect our organization through controls, and we do make mistakes during that process. So that's one form of insider threat that I see. The other is more malicious form, where your intent is to impact your organization negatively and offer harm to your business. So that's the malicious form of insider threat. Now, depending on your organization, you may have one outweigh the other. So, for example, in large technology organizations, change management is fast moving. It happens multiple times a minute. And when you're changing things, over and over again, there is a possibility of things breaking. And that could impact the availability of your organization, that could impact the confidentiality of the data that is in the custody of your organization. So there are many different things that come into play when it comes to insider threat. So you really have to see where does your organization fall when it comes to positioning the risk and what kind of appetite you want to set for your business.
And then what would be some risk mitigation techniques that you recommend organizations look into? Let's say, there are some small businesses out there that want to look at insider risk and insider threats. What's some of your advice for them?
Yeah, in the unintentional impact, you know, aspect of insider threat, you really have to strengthen your change management processes. And what that generally includes, irrespective of what size your organization is, having very clear policies, procedures, and having very clear rhythms and routines to execute on the policies and procedures. Having strong approval chains as part of your change management process and review of every change before it's pushed out. Those are some of the practices that have been in place for years now and have been tried and tested. If you follow these foundational elements, it's highly likely that you would reduce the risk quite significantly. In large enterprises, having multiple different environments in which you operate, where it's staged, you start from a low risk demo environment over to non production, then to integration layer environment. So moving up gradually rather than making changes in production can really reduce the risk for you. On the malicious intent, you need to have strong signals that you receive where your risk is entering your organization. If it's through emails, you have to strengthen your email controls. If it's through your applications that's visible online, then you have to ensure that your internet facing capabilities are assessed and controls are put in place. So those are some of the best practices on the malicious side of things for insider threat, where all it comes down to is strengthening your process controls, user education, having clearly structured approval stages, use segregating your environment so that risk is not clustered completely in production, rather it's evaluated in lower environments. Those are some of the things I would highly recommend as best practices.
I think change management is something everyone needs to monitor. But what we're seeing now in AI security is that a lot of people are excited about AI agents. And the challenge with AI agents is that they're actually going into production environments, going in and making changes. So, any thoughts on the rise of AI agents and how that might impact change management?
Yeah, one of the things that I recommend technologists is that AI agents are great, but start with your sandbox, right? So localize it. so that the blast radius is limited. You are not putting AI agents in production directly and running them, hoping that things will go well. That's just a bad approach, right? In the sense that for the sake of velocity and acceleration, you cannot risk your larger organization and the infrastructure that supports the organization. So, taking a very structured approach where you localize the impact, build AI agents, have very strong controls and testing on it, right? Before it even moves out of your laptop or your localized server to something that's much bigger and impacts the organization. So start small and test it as much as you could within the constraints of your localized environment, and then moving up to engage more people and have more rigorous testing done with larger set of use cases becomes really important as part of that process. And then you slowly move it to production. I feel like another area that people have to pay attention to is the risk assessment of impact that an AI agent could impose upon your environment. So, for example, if these agents do not eventually impact safety and security of human beings, then that's something that's could be considered as low or a medium risk. And the possibility of that moving much faster from your localized instance over to production is very reasonable, very pragmatic. Those are some of the evaluations that have to be done upfront before you can really move quite fast in the release process.
Yeah, great insights there. So, one of the last questions I have is you already talked about fire and alluding to the idea that fire is like AI and machine learning. But for our listeners, is there any other everyday scenario that you can think of to explain an AI security concept?
Every scenario, I feel like people are embedding AI within their day-to-day activity. And I'll give you an example. I'm a big foodie. I like to eat, different kinds of food, and I want to keep it local, right? I want to support our local businesses. And I think I'm a little lazy driving outside my 10-mile requirement radius of driving. What I tend to do is I seek options from AI, and especially generative AI, where at this point I have educated my AI instance enough that they know my preferences, my food allergies, my limitations when it comes to pricing. And I just turn it into a thought partner and a food recommender, if you will. So a lot of people are starting in that space, whether it's exercising and thinking about their hobbies or food preferences or entertainment options. I feel like that could be a very quick and entertaining approach to AI. I see that growing over a period of time, especially retail industry noticing this interaction between humans and AI. And I was reading the other day that, vending machines and kiosks will very soon have AI, and you can talk to the vending machine and talk about what you're looking for so that you get recommended a certain product that can be, you know, presented to you, or customize a certain product that it meets your needs. I think that is going to be very interesting, exciting, and something that I'm looking forward to. But just aligning your preferences and your interests and seeing how AI reacts to that is a very good day to day interaction that I would highly recommend.
Using AI basically to get all this data to you. That's a very, very good use case. I think when you mentioned food, right, there are always these new restaurants coming out, and you can't keep track of all these different updates. Here in Dallas, we have this ghost kitchen from DoorDash. So it's like they make the food for you. So they don't have actual restaurants there, but then they basically create the dish or the meal for you, and then you just pick it up from a store and you can pick different restaurants. So I was just thinking, imagine if AI can also help you determine what it is you want to order, or even, AI can create recipes. That was something a couple years ago people were talking about using AI as a chef. So you never know.
Absolutely. And I think these are very um, meaningful outcomes of using AI. There is an element of surprise me as well, right? Like, sometimes you have a hard time making up your mind what you want to eat. So when you say surprise me, you're still saying within the constraints and conditions I have put in place in the past, right? Not just a random $500 meal that you'll be surprised with. So I feel like that context, that history, those data points from the past really help AI to make meaningful recommendations.
Thank you so much, Abby, for being on our show. Is there anything else you would like to add before we conclude?
Two podcasts that I listen to very frequently. Number one is the AI Daily Brief. It's a daily show, about 25 to 35 minutes in length. And it's a really good show if you want to keep up with all the industry news and the changes that are taking place in the AI space. And the other one, which I feel is quite valuable for people in technology, is NVIDIA AI podcast, where you have folks from different verticals within the industry show up and talk about how AI is used within their space. So whether it's banking or retail or manufacturing, it's an eye-opening listen because you get to kind of really visualize how these are being put in practice, and it adds up in terms of what value AI is offering. It's not just about creating content and, fun images. It's really impacting human lives. And with physical AI, actively being worked on, NVIDIA's AI podcast really underlines the fact that AI is here and it's impacting you and I in ways that you might not have imagined. So I would recommend those two resources.
Yeah, thanks for those resources. So, thank you again, Abby, for being on our show. This concludes our show. We'll be back next time with more great conversations.
Thanks for having me, Anmol. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to the AI Security Update. No hype, just what you need to know. Subscribe to catch the latest episodes and connect with me, Dr. Anmol, on LinkedIn for more insights from the world of AI security. We'll see you next time.